Okay. Hello, cultural legacy builders. Today is day 2 of the 5-day cultural legacy builder challenge. I hesitate because I previously named this creating cultural legacy. And part of that I'll go into today. So welcome back. Those of you who were here yesterday, those of you who have watched the replay, remember to put hashtag replay if you are watching. That lets me know. I can also see in that little eyeball, it shows me the people. So I know you're watching. So go ahead and put a comment in the thread. It will get you entered into an opportunity to win a prize. And yesterday's prize went to Catherine. I'll do a recap of what I covered yesterday, a short recap, as well as insert maybe another key that might help you in building your foundation. Yesterday, I talked about foundations and what exactly when you're building, what do you need for a sure foundation? And part of that was belief system. You have to believe that it's possible for you. I shared my own personal story. And then I told you that with a foundation, it starts with actually having some assets. I asked you to develop your list of assets and write down all of the things that you actually have right now, whether it's real estate, and that happens to be my bailiwick or my expertise, real estate or other assets, whatever it is. You might be an investor and have notes, other commodities, other maybe stocks and bonds, whatever it is you have. You might have fine jewelry, art collection, you might have all of those other miscellaneous items in your asset column. So collect those, write those down, what you have, because as I said yesterday, if you don't know what you have, then it's really hard to build upon that. And so that was yesterday. And part of that foundation, one of the key elements that I want to make sure you walk away with is part of the foundation is establishing something like an insurance policy or a trust, something like that, that will live beyond you and be able to take care of those that you leave behind. Because I believe that we can create wealth for generations to come. So that is the key for what I want you to walk away with. You are creating wealth for generations to come, and not just for generations to come, but also for you. So I've laid out that foundation. Now, today we're going to talk about, well, what is legacy all about? And what is legacy about? Because that term tends to maybe trip people up. And so I want to use that word interchangeably with wealth. So now we are building upon that foundation from yesterday. And anyone want to share, maybe in the chat or online, when you're building a house and you've set that foundation, what is the next step? Do you immediately put a roof on? Do you immediately start your plumbing and your appliances? Do you tell me, what do you do next? What is next? I want to see it in the chat.
Putting the
And
walls.
like the walls, I heard it. The walls, the walls. That is it. That is it. So you start erecting walls. As I drive around and I see there's new apartment complexes coming up, new housing communities coming up, and I see them doing the streets and everything. And surely I see this concrete being poured, those foundations. And before you know it, I see these walls, like all these walls coming up. And so today we're going to talk about those walls. And those walls are investment vehicles. In order to become an investor, it's helpful. It's not necessary, but it's helpful if you already have an asset, if you already own a home, if you already have something, then you can build upon it. But whether you do or not, you can purchase your first asset as an investor. There are several different walls you can put up for this investment vehicle that you want to use. Because remember, you are creating that wealth for generations to come. I said yesterday that we, those who believe and maybe those who don't believe in having whatever they've acquired in this lifetime that they can pass it on to someone else. That someone else could be family, that someone else could be a cause that you believe in, whatever that is. So imagine the walls. Can anyone share just one type of wall that might come up as you're building this wealth? As you're building this wealth, you have that foundation, meaning you have your insurance, you have all those basic, you have a will, you have all those basic things. That's your foundation. Now you're bringing up the walls. What are the walls that you are creating? Anyone want to share? Do you see anyone on Facebook? And if you're watching in the replay, go ahead and put it in the chat. What are the investment walls that you're using? I'll share some investment walls that I've used by telling you a short story. I purchased my first home in 1994, the same year that I started real estate. And when I bought my first home, I didn't think I would be buying future homes, nor did I think I would be using my first home as an investment vehicle. But that's one tool that you can use. So if you already have a home, if you're already a homeowner and you're thinking, I don't want to start an investment externally. I don't want to pay all that money for the additional fees of an investment vehicle. Well, you can use your current property that you have. You can either use it as a cash house, meaning you pull the equity out and buy other properties or another property, or you can keep it and rent it out and you become a move-up buyer. So there are a myriad of ways that you might want to develop that wall, but the first wall that I built was renting out my first home. So I rented that out. That's one wall. Second wall that came up was when my father passed away. He transferred the assets. Actually, prior to his death, he transferred the assets to me, and I mentioned that yesterday that was through a death deed. So those assets were transferred to me. Actually, while he was living, we had the understanding that they were still his properties. He would still collect the rents. He would still pay the taxes because there were no mortgages. He would still basically retain ownership of them. And upon his passing, he would transfer them to me. They were already transferred to me legally. In fact, we kind of got into a little debate because when it was tax time, I wanted to write off these assets because in real estate at the time, I don't recall if I had already set up my S corp, my entity. And that's another thing. If you are becoming an investor, that's a key. You want to have an entity. That kind of rhymes. That's a key. You want to have an entity. So you set up either an LLC or a corporation or something of that. I believe LLCs, and you talk to your accountant or your tax attorney on which would be best for you. I happen to have both, but for my first property, I purchased it in my husband and my both of our names. So that was my way of purchasing my first asset. So that's basically a sole corporation, which is probably the least desirable entity, a sole corporation, in terms of the tax implications, but I don't want to get too deep. So the second wall was my investment that I purchased the first wall was my first home. The second wall was my father's assets. So he gave me three assets. One, two, three. He gave me three assets. So really, that completed the outer frame of the house that I was building. But I wanted to build upon that and I wanted to multiply what I had. So then I decided that I wanted to become a move-up buyer. So I bought another home with I didn't use the equity in that. I just bought another home conventional and used some of the income from the rentals that I had acquired. So think about what you have in your hand and what you are setting your sights on, because we're talking about building. In order to be a legacy builder, that means you're creating something that will stand the test of time, something that is here now and it will be here when you're no longer here. And that foundation piece that we talked about, that's how you're going to transfer those assets and create that wealth for future generations. So I want to slow down because I get excited about this and I can go on and on and on, but I want to make sure that you're capturing what the essence of what I'm saying. So we talked about the foundation and now we're talking about building walls. And those walls are wealth. It's wealth. Each wall is a wealth. I have another mentor, Joel Block, who talks about the revenue octopus. So if you think about all of these investment vehicles that you can use, now I'm talking real estate, but what if you don't have real estate? What if you have other assets? What if you have notes? What if you have fine art? What if you have other collectibles? And what if you have some historical pictures? I happen to have started a Facebook group, a private Facebook group for my family because my mother wants to have a family reunion. And I don't know many of her family. I knew most of my father's family, but not much on my mother's side. So for her and for me, I wanted to find out more about her side of the family. And last night there was a post on there with a photograph from a great grandfather from the 1800s. And the portrait was beautiful. It was preserved. And the family member that posted it put the link to the DNA, not the DNA, ancestry.com link and shared it with the group. So we can all go onto ancestry.com. I don't know if anybody's doing that, but that's part of knowing who you are, knowing your identity, knowing where you came from, is looking back on those past generations. Because I found out that this particular family member was very wealthy. And he, during the 1800s, it was still very difficult time for African Americans. And during that time, he had amassed a lot of wealth. And in reading it, I found out that he was not able to transfer it all except a small portion because of the taxes and all these other expenses and things that he still owed on whatever he had. But it was just interesting hearing that story. Now, I would have never known that had I not looked back at my history, my ancestry. So I want to challenge you to not just know who you are today and who you want to be in the future, but know where you come from, know your lineage, know your roots. So that could also be another wall. So we're building this house, and houses typically have four walls, but I happen to live in a house that is a one story, but it has bay windows in some areas, so it bounces in and out, and it has garages. So there's multiple walls. So if you only have four walls, that's going to be your starter house, right? Think about that as a starter house. But if you have multiple walls, meaning multiple investment vehicles, multiple assets, you're building on that foundation. And that is key. You want to multiply what it is you have in your hand. You're starting out with the one, or maybe you're starting out with the seed, right? You're starting out with the seed. And when you think about seed, you think about what you're planting in the ground. You're putting your money in the bank, or you're putting your money in some investment vehicle where it's increasing, right? It's increasing. You're not, I remember this parable of the sowers. I don't know if you've heard this before, but it talks about, the, the steward gave one demera, I forgot what they call demeria, and gave another one two and gave another one five and said, go, go create, basically create something with what I'm giving you. you're getting paid. And so the one that received 5 came back and said, "Here, I got 5 more." In other words, he received an investment on what he received. He multiplied it. 5, he got 10. And because he did that, he was able to receive like a tip on top of that from the, I don't want to call him a master, but the manager. I think that's what he was called, the manager. So he received, and if you know who it is, share that in the group because I don't have the exact title, but the concept, let's follow the concept. So the one with 5 was able to make 5 more. He had 10, and on top of that, he received 10 more. So he was doing pretty good, right? The next one at 2, he was able to get 2 more. He multiplied his income as well. So he got 2 more. And so the manager rewarded him with some more, right? And then the one with 1 came in proud saying, "Hey, I'm a good steward. I put that one that you gave me because I know you're a hard taskmaster. I know you're tough on people. You're a tough, wealthy person. So I took that one and I buried it in the ground, right? I buried it in the ground because I believe it's going to grow. I buried it in the ground. And what happened is the owners or the taskmaster, I call him owner, landlord, said, "You foolish. If you knew I was a hard taskmaster, you should have at least put it in the bank to get some interest. So because you buried it, I'm going to take the one that you have and give it to someone who will know what to do with it." So that's a lesson for all of us that whatever we have, we can multiply it. And it's our responsibility to be good stewards over what we've received. So, as we think about building those walls of investment, as we think about creating wealth for future generations, think about what asset vehicles am I going to use to build my house, to build my legacy? That's what I mean about legacy. That's what I mean by legacy. It's something that stands the test of time, something that when you leave, you'll leave the mark on the world that the world will know you were here, right? It could be in real estate, it could be in other assets, it could be in books, it could be whatever you find valuable that you can, what's the word, that you can monetize, something that you can monetize and be able to pass that on to future generations. So that is really the key to growing and cultivating real estate. I say real estate. I'm thinking real estate. So excuse me if I always say real estate because that's the vehicle that I use. But you can choose to use another vehicle. I believe wealth is the real estate is the number one wealth generator. So some might argue and say stocks, investing in stocks. But if you look over time, real estate tends to go up in value and typically doesn't drop. We have had what you might call market corrections. We've had a major bust in real estate around the time where the banks went under and there was a lot of predatory lending. We had a big drop. Now, people tend to ask me, well, what do you see happening in the real estate? Um, will we continue to see prices increase? And my response is right now we're on a market where we are still seeing increases, maybe not as significant as the prior year or prior years, but I see a settling going on. I see that prices will start to settle. And what does that mean? I don't think prices are going to drop. I think buyers want prices to drop, but that's my crystal ball. So that's my little short side note on that. So today I really just wanted to focus on those walls. Now, one of the walls that I'm currently working on, and I did hear one lady talking about working on this one, is wholesaling. Wholesaling, for those of you who don't know, is basically you find good deals and you pass them on to others and you receive compensation for that. You receive a fee for that. So wholesaling is another way to build your wealth walls without actually acquiring the real estate. Wholesaling. There are other ways. I had a gentleman reach out to me that was a buyer who is not in a position to buy right now, but he's in a position where he's found a deal and he wants to do a lease purchase. So that's helping him, right? That's a lease purchase for him. That's not helping me, but I'm able to share what I know, my skill sets with others so that they can start generating wealth for future generations. Because this particular person intends to buy in the future. He's just not in a position to buy right now. I've also, another wall that I've started working on is a wall of short sales. I have a designation of being a short sale expert. And actually, I have one in REO as well, or real estate owned. So those are other specialties where you can create wealth in real estate and not actually have the asset. But they are great tools for those of you who want to invest. And those of you who don't want to actually have the real estate, there are notes that you can acquire and that you can sell. And that gets a little technical. So if you're not experienced in those, I suggest you find someone who is and get a mentor because in all of these investment vehicles, it's important to educate yourself, get up under someone who's savvy and an expert in that field before you start going down that road of investment and not sure of what you're doing. Another one is fix and flip. I'm sure many of you have heard of that, where you acquire an asset and you fix it up. I've done that several times, and I'm actually not doing that right now. I'm in the process of doing wholesaling because I want to acquire enough capital to acquire larger assets. But fix and flip. That's basically when you find a good deal and you're in a market that or in a neighborhood, because real estate is local. When people ask questions, it depends. And that's typically the correct answer. It depends on what market you're in, it depends on what community you're in, because real estate is relative to the local comparable sales. So when you're looking at investments, that's what you want to look at. If you're doing a fix and flip, I'll just use round numbers. If you're buying a $500,000 property and it's only going to be worth 550 when you're done, you don't really have enough margin in there to fix it up and sell it. But if you find something at 500,000 and it's worth $1 million, you have a lot of room. Or if it's worth 750, you have a lot more. You have some room to work with. It depends on what your expenses are, your rehab expenses. So those are some of the walls that we need to consider when we're building that legacy. And that legacy, again, is for future generations. I want to stop and check in and see if there are any questions or comments on any. I can see, yep, I can see a couple of people there. So if you have any questions, please ask now. This is a good time. If you have any questions about investments, I can go ahead and give maybe a real life example. I've done a little bit of everything. There's some things I haven't done that I'm a little averse to. I actually had started in the process of a development, but I decided to pull the brakes on that because that was a very cost prohibitive investment vehicle for me. Now, you may decide it's not cost prohibitive for you, but each and every one of us has to look at our risk tolerance and see, okay, what am I willing to risk? What are the risks that I'm willing to take to build this legacy? Not just for generations to come, but also for me while I'm still here. And while I don't see any questions yet, I just want to kind of go back to yesterday. I briefly mentioned trust, which is a real estate. Well, it doesn't have to be real estate trust, but a trust is another level where you can have this vehicle where you put all your assets in. So we've been talking about walls today, different opportunities where you can invest, whether it's through real estate or real estate related other assets, whatever those vehicles are, and you're putting them somewhere. Now, that somewhere, my recommendation is a trust. So, a trust is another way to protect those assets and to protect you from the higher tax implications. That's a mouthful, and I could really go deeper into that. So, if you really want to get a little deeper, then I would suggest you sign up for the VIP. And you are correct. I forgot to put that in the group yesterday. So I will drop that link today for VIP, which will be Friday and Saturday. The VIP will spend an hour both days going over each, whichever questions you have. We can go a little deeper behind the scenes, which I don't have the time in these 30 minutes to go over. But the wealth of information that you can glean from just the VIP session, you'll walk away thinking, wow, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So I'd love to be able to share that with you. And again, in the limited time, it's really hard to do. But we have the VIP. We also have um, the playbook that I created, which now I'm in the 5th edition, and that is also there. That link is posted. And then there's a resource that I posted in the guides. That resource is valuable. Take a look at that resource. It's free. This is a free 5-day challenge. So take a look at that resource. I want to give maximum value for those of you who are interested in building a legacy, right? Or that cultural legacy. And when I say cultural, I'm thinking of, where do you come from? Who do you belong to? Do you know your family? All that kind of stuff. Because I've created several family reunions from the time I was little. I've always had that interest in knowing my family because that's how I was raised. I was raised to know my cousins, my uncles, my aunts, my distant cousins. I mean, I would know like third and fourth cousins, which my father wanted to make sure I knew that so I wouldn't be dating them. That was kind of his ulterior motive, is so I wouldn't. He said, I want you marrying your cousins because that's just how close his family was. So now I get to experience that on my mother's side, and I get to go even further back in her roots to see. And I even found out her origin even comes from Ireland. So there's so many things you can learn that also comes back to who you are. That's your identity. So I want to remind you about your homework. I didn't have many people do their homework, but Nadia's checking for me to see if we have any winners for today. So in order to qualify for a prize, then you either need to go live, right? Go live, say your name, share maybe a big takeaway or what you're looking to get from this challenge, right? That's one way to do homework. Or you can pull off the homework sheet and actually take time to go through that. Now, if you don't have time for that, go live. This is a private Facebook group. Only the people in this group see the videos, right? So do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and go live and share. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. I'm sharing with you, and I'm hoping you can reciprocate by sharing with me. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this 5-day challenge about creating. I keep saying creating. I took that out of the name. Legacy builder, cultural legacy builder. I'll get that name straight. I need your help with that. Help me kind of seam that up because it's all in there. It's all in there about creating that wealth for future generations so that you don't leave it behind. You're going to leave eventually. We're not here forever. So thank you again. And I will see you tomorrow. And I will post that VIP link for you. So I will sign off for now. See
There
you
is a
tomorrow. All right.
question.
Bye. Oh, you have a question? There's a question?
There is a question was, would like to hear about the leasing. Is that to start? How does it work?
Leasing,
Mhm.
Leasing.
Yep.
Leasing. Okay, since I'm at the end, I'll just do a brief. Leasing is basically a rental that has a commitment that could come with a monetary down payment and a end date of a future purchase. So typically, if you're doing a lease purchase, it's 2 to 5 years. You can have an extended lease purchase, but it's basically you put more down than a security deposit. You put a little bit more down because you're going to risk that money that you put down for a future purchase because you want to use that money toward that future purchase. So that is what a lease purchase is, but we could talk more about that in the VIP session. Whatever questions you have while I'm on the Zoom, I'm happy to answer them, or while I'm on Facebook, I'm happy to answer them. But sign up for the VIP. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.